In a rich and powerful HOA community, everything looks perfect on the outside but feels cold and heartless underneath. Wide, clean roads shine under soft streetlights. Tall gates stand like silent judges. Luxury cars move slowly without sound, and security cameras rotate non-stop, watching every corner without blinking. Here rules matter more than people. Fines are given without mercy. Warnings are handed out like daily mail, and kindness is treated like a weakness. Inside this world lives a young man named Evan, not as a resident but as someone who exists on the edge, unseen and unwanted. Evan is 24 years old, thin from stress and long nights, his jacket worn, his shoes cracked at the sole. He works as a night cleaner for a small private contractor that cleans the outer sidewalks near the HOA gates. He is not allowed inside, never past the gate, never near the homes. The guards know his face and not in a friendly way. Evan keeps his head down, does his job quietly and leaves before dawn. He needs this work badly. His rent is overdue. Eviction notices sit folded in his pocket, and every dollar decides if he eats or not. That night, the air feels colder than usual. The HOA lights glow softly like a fake promise of safety. Evan pushes his cleaning cart slowly along the sidewalk near the main entrance. Trash is light tonight. The rich waste quietly. His thoughts are heavy though. He thinks about the landlord's last warning, about the job he lost before this one, about how close his life feels to falling apart. He wipes sweat from his forehead even though the night is cool. Fear does that to a person. As Evan bends down near a marble planter by the entrance gate, something catches his eye, a dark shape resting where it doesn't belong. He pauses, looks around instinctively, cameras blink red above him, guards talk softly in the distance. Evan crouches and picks it up carefully. It's a wallet, old, worn at the edges. Leather cracked like it has been carried for many years, not flashy, not expensive looking, just tired, like it's been through life. Evan's heart beats faster. Finding money can be dangerous in places like this. He hesitates but slowly opens the wallet. Inside are folded bills. More than he has seen at one time in months. His breath catches. For a second his mind goes quiet, then loud all at once: eviction, food, safety, a way out. But then he sees something else: old photographs tucked inside, faded pictures of a young man smiling beside an older woman, the same woman in different years, birthdays, holidays, and then a small handwritten note, shaky and personal. Evan reads it softly to himself. The words speak of regret, loss, and loneliness, written by someone who feels forgotten. Evan swallows hard. This is not just money. This is someone's life pressed into leather. He feels something twist in his chest. Before he can think further, he hears hurried footsteps, quick, uneven, filled with panic. Evan looks up and sees an elderly woman, well-dressed but visibly shaken, searching the ground desperately near the gate. Her hands tremble, her breathing shallow, her eyes wide with fear. She checks her purse again and again. Her lips whisper something Evan can't hear. But he understands the panic without words. At the same moment, two HOA guards begin moving toward them. Their radios crackle softly, their eyes sharp and suspicious. Evan knows the rules. Interacting with residents is not allowed. Being questioned can cost him his job or worse, get him banned from the area entirely. His mind races. Returning the wallet could ruin him. Keeping it could save him. The choice stands in front of him like a wall. The old woman takes a few unsteady steps closer to the gate. Her legs shake. She leans on the cold metal for support, her face pale under the lights. Evan notices something else now. Her fear is not just about money. It is deeper, more fragile. Like losing the wallet means losing the last piece of something important. Evan's fingers tighten around the wallet. Cameras blink again. Red light reflecting off the leather. Time feels slow and loud. Evan could turn away, slip the wallet into his jacket, finish his shift. No one would know. His life would become easier, at least for a while. He feels the weight of survival pulling at him. Hunger has its own voice. Fear speaks clearly. But then the old woman's eyes meet his, for a brief second, and in that look he sees trust, desperation, and quiet hope mixed together, and something inside Evan breaks. Before the guards can speak, Evan steps forward, his voice low and respectful. He holds the wallet out with both hands. "Ma'am, I think this is yours." The words feel heavy as they leave his mouth. The guards stop, watching closely. The old woman freezes, Then her eyes drop to the wallet. Recognition floods her face. Tears well instantly. Her hands shake harder as she reaches for it. She clutches it to her chest like it is a living thing. "Oh, thank God," she whispers, her voice barely holding together. She looks at Evan as if he has just saved her from something unseen. Her knees weaken and she stumbles slightly. Evan moves instinctively to help but stops himself, knowing the guards are watching. The old woman steadies herself and nods weakly, gratitude shining in her eyes. But before she can say more, one guard steps forward sharply. "What's going on here?" the guard asks, his tone cold, official, already assuming blame. Evan feels his stomach drop. The old woman tries to speak but struggles for breath. Her hand presses against her chest, panic and stress crashing together. Evan's heart races. This was not how he imagined it. Not like this. The guard turns to Evan, eyes narrow. "You're not authorized to interact with residents," he says firmly. Another guard moves closer, blocking the entrance. Evan opens his mouth to explain but stops. Words feel useless in this place. The old woman suddenly sways, her strength giving out. The wallet slips from her fingers and falls to the ground again. This time, Evan doesn't hesitate. He steps forward, ignoring the cameras, the rules, the guards. He catches her arm just as she starts to collapse. For a moment, everything freezes. Guards shout into radios. Lights seem brighter. Evan supports the old woman as best he can. Her breathing is shallow, her skin cold. She looks at him again, fear mixed with trust. "Don't let them take it," she whispers, meaning the wallet, meaning her memories, meaning everything she carries alone. Sirens begin in the distance. Paramedics are called. HOA residents peek from windows like silent spectators. Evan feels exposed, judged, but he doesn't let go, even when the guards pull him back roughly, even when they accuse him of causing a disturbance. Evan watches as medics arrive and help the old woman onto a stretcher. She holds the wallet tightly against her chest, refusing to let it go. Her eyes find Evan one last time before she is taken away, and she mouths two words he will never forget. "Thank you." As the ambulance doors close, Evan stands alone under the blinking cameras. Guards surround him, voices loud, accusing, but he barely hears them. His heart is still with the old woman. With the choice he made, fear settles in his stomach now, deep and heavy. He knows consequences are coming, warnings, fines, job loss, maybe worse. But even as the guards escort him away from the gate, something strange happens inside him, a quiet calm, a painful peace. Evan doesn't know who the old woman is, he doesn't know the power she holds, he doesn't know that this small act of kindness has already triggered forces far beyond his understanding. He only knows that tonight, in a place where rules mattered more than people, he chose to be human, and that choice has just pulled him into a world that will never let him go quietly. And as the HOA cameras record every second, as reports are filed and names written down, one truth begins to form silently in the background. This was never just a lost wallet. This was the beginning of something that will shake the entire HOA to its core. The moment the ambulance disappears beyond the tall HOA gates, the cold air feels heavier. The soft luxury lights that once looked calm now feel sharp and cruel. Evan stands alone under the cameras, his hands still shaking from what just happened, his heart beating fast, not from fear alone but from the weight of the choice he made. Around him the HOA guards close and slowly, their boots heavy on the clean pavement, their faces hard, trained to protect property, not people. One guard grabs Evan's arm roughly and pulls him away from the gate. Evan stumbles but doesn't resist. He knows resistance only makes things worse here. Residents begin to appear at their windows. Curtains move. Silhouettes watch silently. No one speaks. No one asks if the old woman is okay. Eyes judge, assume, and move on. Evan feels smaller with every step, like the ground itself is rejecting him. "You caused a disturbance," one guard says loudly, making sure the cameras catch it. "You are not authorized to interact with residents." Another adds, his voice cold and rehearsed. Evan opens his mouth to explain, to say he only returned a wallet, to say she was about to collapse. But the words die before they leave his throat. He has learned that explanations don't matter when power has already decided the story. They take him to a small security office near the gate. Bright white lights buzz overhead. The room smells of disinfectant and control. A clipboard is pushed in front of him. Questions are fired quickly, sharp, accusing. Why were you near the gate? Why did you approach the resident? Did you take anything from her? Every question feels like a trap. Evan answers calmly, honestly, his voice low, his hands folded tightly in his lap. But the guards don't write much. They already believe what they want to believe. Outside the office, Evan can hear radios crackling. Someone mentions incident report. Someone else mentions violation. Evan's stomach tightens. He knows what those words lead to. Warnings turn into fines. Fines turn into bans. Bans turn into lost jobs. And lost jobs turn into eviction. His whole life balances on these cold words spoken by people who don't know his name. After what feels like hours but is only minutes, Evan is escorted out again. This time past the same gate where everything started. The irony stings. A senior HOA supervisor arrives. Well-dressed, calm, powerful. She doesn't look at Evan like a person. She looks at him like a problem to be cleaned up. You will receive a formal violation notice, she says flatly. Any further interaction with HOA residents will result in permanent removal from the area. Evan nods slowly, his chest tight. He wants to ask about the old woman, wants to know if she's okay. But he already knows the answer he would get, silence, so he swallows the question and looks down. The supervisor turns away as if he no longer exists. The decision made, the file closed. When Evan finally leaves the HOA area, the streets outside feel darker, emptier. The luxury glow gone, replaced by flickering streetlights and broken sidewalks. He pushes his cleaning cart slowly, his shift technically unfinished, but his heart too heavy to care. His phone vibrates in his pocket. He already knows what it is before he looks. A message from his contractor, short and cold. HOA complained. We can't use you there anymore. Sorry. Evan stops walking. The world feels quiet in a painful way, like all sound has been drained out. He stares at the message again and again, hoping it will change. It doesn't. His hands tremble now, not from cold but from panic. That job was his last chance. Without it he has nothing. No income, no safety, no buffer between him and the street. He leans against a wall and closes his eyes, fighting the pressure building behind them. As he walks home, memories replay in his mind. The old woman's shaking hands, the look in her eyes, the way she clutched the wallet like it was her heart. Evan wonders if he did the right thing. The question hurts because deep down he knows the answer. But knowing doesn't pay rent. Knowing doesn't stop eviction notices. Knowing doesn't fill an empty fridge. At his small rented room, Evan sits on the edge of his bed, peeling paint on the walls, unpaid bills stacked neatly like quiet threats. He removes his jacket and notices a small dark mark on the sleeve where the guard grabbed him. Anger flickers briefly, then fades, exhaustion replaces it. He lies back and stares at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of neighbors living their lives, laughter through thin walls, footsteps above him, life continuing without pause. The next morning, Evan wakes to loud knocking, sharp and impatient. His heart jumps, fear immediate. He opens the door to find his landlord standing there, expression tired and annoyed. You got 2 weeks. The landlord says, not unkind but firm. I can't wait anymore. Evan nods again. That word has become his shield. Nod. Accept. Survive. Later that day, Evan checks his phone again. Another message. This one worse. An official HOA violation notice emailed to his contractor and copied to him by mistake. It describes him as a disruptive individual, accuses him of causing resident distress. The words feel like knives, the truth twisted into something ugly. Evan's hands shake as he scrolls, his name reduced to a problem, his kindness rewritten as a threat. Meanwhile, far away in a quiet hospital room, the old woman lies awake, monitors beeping softly, the wallet resting on the table beside her. She opens it slowly, carefully, like it might disappear again. She pulls out the old photos, her fingers tracing familiar faces, memories flooding back. She remembers the young man's eyes, not greedy, not scared, just kind. She remembers how he held out the wallet with both hands, like it mattered. A tear slides down her cheek. She presses the call button and asks for her assistant. Her voice weak but clear. Find him? She says, the young man from last night. Her assistant hesitates, confused, but nods. unaware that these simple words are the beginning of something powerful. Back in his room, Evan sits alone as the sun sets, the weight of the day pressing down on him. He thinks about how easily people in power can crush someone without even noticing, how rules can erase humanity, how one good act can cost everything, and yet, even in the middle of fear, something unexpected remains, a quiet sense that he would make the same choice again. Evan doesn't know that the old woman is not just a resident. He doesn't know her name carries weight in boardrooms and courtrooms. He doesn't know that the cameras that recorded his humiliation will soon be replayed with very different eyes. He only knows that tonight, he is broke, scared, and alone. But somewhere beyond his small room, behind hospital walls and silent phone calls, a storm is slowly forming, not loud yet, not visible but real, and when it finally breaks, the HOA that punished kindness will wish it had never blinked those cameras at all. The hospital room is quiet in a way that feels heavy. Machines beep softly, white lights reflect off clean walls, and the smell of medicine fills the air. The elderly woman lies still on the bed, her breathing slow but steady, exhaustion written across her face, yet her hands are tightly holding something close to her chest, the same worn wallet that almost disappeared forever. When she slowly opens her eyes, the first thing she sees is the wallet resting beside her, placed there carefully by a nurse. Her fingers tremble as she reaches for it, not from weakness alone but from fear, the fear of almost losing the last piece of her past without anyone noticing. She pulls it closer, presses it gently against her heart, and closes her eyes for a moment, letting the memory of last night wash over her. She remembers the cold HOA lights, the sharp voices, the panic in her chest, and then she remembers him, the young man, his tired eyes, his worn jacket, the way he held the wallet with both hands like it mattered more than money. She remembers how he didn't hesitate when everyone else did, how he stepped forward even when the cameras watched him like a threat. A small tear slips from the corner of her eye. Slowly, she opens the wallet again, this time carefully, like opening a fragile memory. She pulls out the old photographs one by one, her fingers tracing faces long gone, a younger version of herself smiling beside a man who never came back, a child holding her hand, birthdays, holidays, a life lived quietly behind closed doors. Each photo feels heavier than the last. Then she unfolds the handwritten note. The paper is old, creased, the writing shaky, written during a night much like the one before. She reads the words silently, though she already knows them by heart. If you find this, please return it. This is all I have left of the people I loved. Her lips tremble, her shoulders shake slightly, and for the first time since waking up, she allows herself to cry, not loudly, not dramatically, just silently, the way powerful people cry when no one is watching. A nurse knocks softly and steps in, asking if she needs anything. The woman wipes her tears quickly and nods no, thanking her politely. Once the door closes again, the room returns to silence. But something inside the woman has changed. Her eyes harden slightly, not with anger, but with clarity. She presses the call button. Moments later, a well-dressed assistant enters, tablet in hand, concern clear on his face. "Mrs. Hale, are you all right?" he asks gently. The woman nods slowly, then looks directly at him, her voice weak but firm. "I want you to find the young man from last night," she says. "The one who returned my wallet." The assistant hesitates, surprised. "The cleaner?" he asks carefully. She nods again. "Yes," she replies. "Find him, and find out what happened to him after I was taken away." Her tone changes slightly, something sharper underneath the softness. The assistant recognizes that tone immediately. It is the voice that moves markets, that freezes accounts, that ends careers. He nods without question. As the assistant steps out to make calls, the woman leans back against her pillow, staring at the ceiling. Memories drift through her mind, not just of last night, but of years spent surrounded by people who wanted something from her. Money, power, influence, never kindness, never honesty. The young man didn't know who she was, didn't care who she was, and that is exactly why his act mattered. Outside the hospital room, phones begin ringing quietly, names are checked, footage is requested, and reports are pulled. The assistant listens carefully as security teams describe the incident, as HOA representatives explain their version. Words like violation, disturbance, Unauthorized interaction are used freely. The assistant's jaw tightens with every sentence. Inside the room, Mrs. Hale closes her eyes again, but her mind is awake, sharp, calculating. She remembers how the guards spoke to the young man, how they grabbed him, how easily blame found him. She remembers the look on his face, calm but scared, the look of someone who has already lost too much to fight back. A few hours later, the assistant returns, his expression different now, careful, uneasy. They issued him a violation notice. He says slowly, he lost his job contract this morning. Mrs. Hale opens her eyes instantly, pain flashes across her face, followed by something colder, something dangerous, and she asks, "He's facing eviction," the assistant adds quietly. The room feels colder. Mrs. Hale turns her head toward the window, sunlight streaming in softly, illuminating her silver hair, her expression unreadable. "All of that," she says slowly, "for returning a wallet." Her voice doesn't rise, doesn't shake, but the calm in it is far more terrifying than anger. She takes a deep breath and says one sentence that changes the direction of everything. "I want the footage," she says, "every camera angle." Meanwhile, miles away, Evan walks slowly through the city, nowhere to go. His hands in his pockets, shoulders hunched, the world moving around him without noticing. He passes shop windows filled with things he can't afford, people laughing, living, unaware that his life is quietly collapsing. His phone buzzes, but it's only automated messages, reminders of bills due, reminders of how replaceable he is. He sits on a bench near a bus stop, watching cars pass, his thoughts heavy. He wonders if the old woman is okay, if she remembers him at all. Part of him hopes she doesn't, that she won't feel guilty for the trouble he's now in. He stares at the ground and exhales slowly, trying to steady himself. Back at the hospital, Mrs. Hale watches security footage on a tablet. The video plays silently, showing Evan picking up the wallet, hesitating, opening it, looking around, the old woman searching frantically, the guards approaching. The moment Evan steps forward, the moment he chooses, Mrs. Hale's eyes stay fixed on the screen, every detail burning itself into her memory. When the footage ends, she hands the tablet back without a word. "Find him," she says again, this time with no weakness in her voice at all. "And prepare the HOA files." The assistant nods, already understanding the storm that is coming. Mrs. Hale closes her eyes once more, but now there is no fear left in her face, only resolve. The wallet rests safely beside her, returned. But something far more important has been found. The HOA boardroom looks calm on the outside, polished table, leather chairs, soft lights, framed rules hanging on the walls like trophies. But inside the room something feels wrong. Unease hangs in the air, voices are lower than usual, smiles are forced. Phones vibrate quietly on the table, one by one bored. Members glance at their screens, reading messages they do not like. Private request has arrived. Not loud, not threatening, just official. A request for incident footage, guard conduct reports, and violation history, signed by a legal firm none of them can ignore. The room goes silent. One board member clears his throat, another shifts in his seat, someone laughs nervously and says it's probably routine, but no one believes that. They all know routine does not come with this level of detail. Routine does not ask for archived footage. Routine does not mention temporary financial review. The HOA manager adjusts her glasses, her confident tone cracking slightly as she speaks. "We followed protocol," she says, more to convince herself than the others. The cleaner caused distress. But even as she says it, her voice lacks strength, because deep down she knows the truth. The rules were enforced without care, without humanity, exactly the way they always are. Outside that room, security supervisors scramble quietly, emails are sent, footage is pulled. Guards are warned to keep quiet. Words like liability and exposure are whispered in hallways. Panic does not explode. It leaks slowly into every corner of the HOA office. At the same time, far away from polished tables and soft lights, Evan sits on the edge of his bed in his small rented room. The eviction notice spread open in front of him, bold letters staring back without mercy. He reads the date again and again. 2 weeks, his chest tightens, his mind tries to plan, but every path leads to the same wall. No job, no savings, no backup. He presses his palms against his eyes, breathing slowly, trying not to panic, but the weight is too much. Memories flood in, his parents arguing about bills years ago, the day he dropped out of school to work, every promise he made to himself to do better. Now all of it feels fragile, like it could disappear overnight. His phone buzzes. For a brief second, hope flickers. But it's only another automated message. Past due. Final reminder. Evan exhales slowly, a quiet sound of defeat. He stands up and looks around the room. Everything he owns fits inside it. A bed, a small table, a few clothes, a life reduced to essentials. He wonders if kindness was a luxury he could not afford. The thought hurts because he knows the answer, yet even now he cannot bring himself to regret it. Back inside the HOA offices, the first crack appears. An accountant flags irregularities. Not illegal yet, but uncomfortable. Past fines, selective enforcement, complaints buried without review, patterns that look bad when viewed together. The HOA board had always assumed no one powerful was watching. Now they feel eyes everywhere. A call comes in. Short, careful, professional. The assistant's voice is calm, polite, and precise, requesting confirmation of cooperation. Nothing more, nothing less. But the message is clear. Resistance will only make things worse. One board member suggests settling quietly. Another suggests blaming the contractor. A third suggests the young man is the problem. But each suggestion falls flat, because the name attached to the request is finally spoken out loud. Hale. The room freezes. No one needs an explanation. Margaret Hale is not just wealthy, she is influence, she is donors, she is legal teams that do not lose. She is the kind of power that does not shout, it waits. The HOA manager swallows hard. This changes things. Someone whispers. Meanwhile, Evan walks the city streets again. This time with purpose but no direction. He visits 3 places looking for work. A warehouse, a small grocery, a cleaning service. Each interview ends politely but quickly. We'll call you, they say, but Evan has learned what that means. As evening falls, rain begins to drizzle. The cold seeps into his jacket. He stops under an awning and watches people hurry past. Umbrellas open. Lives moving forward. He feels invisible, like the world has already decided he doesn't matter. At the hospital, Margaret Hale sits upright now, stronger than before. Her eyes sharp as she reviews documents. She doesn't rush, doesn't raise her voice. She simply reads, page after page. Her assistant stands nearby, updating her quietly. They're nervous. He says, the board is already discussing internal review. Good, she replies softly. She pauses, then asks, has anyone spoken to the young man? No, the assistant answers. Good, she says again, her gaze steady. Not yet. She understands something the HOA does not. Justice is not loud. Timing matters, and Evan deserves dignity, not pity. Back at the HOA, guards who once acted confidently now avoid eye contact. Reports are rewritten carefully. Words softened, blame shifted. But it is too late. The footage exists. The truth is preserved in high definition. Evan's calm face. The wallet held with both hands. The old woman collapsing. The guards pulling him away. Truth does not disappear just because someone wants it to. Late that night, Evan returns to his room soaked from rain. He sits on his bed and stares at the wall, exhaustion pulling him down. He whispers to himself, barely audible, I did the right thing. Saying it out loud feels necessary, like a promise he has to keep. Across the city, in offices and boardrooms, sleep does not come easily for HOA leadership. Phones stay on, emails keep arriving, legal language replaces arrogance. For the first time, they feel what it's like to be watched. And somewhere, between Evan's quiet despair and the HOA's growing fear, the balance of power begins to shift, slowly, silently, like a tide pulling back before a storm. The young man believes his life is falling apart. The HOA believes they can still control the damage. Both are wrong. Because when quiet power moves, it does not warn, and when it finally arrives, it changes everything. The morning sun rises slowly over the city, but for Evan, it feels like just another heavy day. He wakes up before his alarm out of habit, his body trained by years of struggle. He sits on the edge of his bed staring at the floor, listening to the distant sounds of traffic, the eviction notice still folded neatly on the small table, waiting like a final sentence. He takes a deep breath and stands up, because even when hope feels gone, survival still demands movement. He spends the morning selling what little he can: an old phone charger, a spare jacket, small things that once felt normal but now feel painful to let go of. Every sale reminds him how close he is to losing everything. By afternoon his pockets are still light, his future still unclear, and his heart still heavy, yet he keeps walking, because stopping means thinking, and thinking hurts. At the same time, in a quiet hospital office filled with soft light and calm authority, Margaret Hale signs a document without hesitation. Her hands steady, her expression composed, but behind her eyes something powerful is awake now. She has reviewed every report, every message, every camera angle. She knows exactly what happened. She knows who Evan is, and she knows what the HOA tried to do. She looks up at her assistant and says calmly, "It's time." Just 2 words, but they carry weight. The assistant nods immediately, making calls, arranging meetings, not announcing anything publicly. Not yet. Margaret does not believe in spectacle. She believes in precision. Back at the HOA office, the board receives another message. This one different, shorter, requesting a private meeting, no accusations, no threats, just a time, a place, and a name at the bottom. The same name that has already shaken them. Panic spreads quietly again, voices lower, confidence fades. Someone asks, "What does she want?" But no one answers, because they all know truth. Meanwhile, Evan sits on a bench near the old bus stop again. Watching people pass, he feels tired in a way that sleep cannot fix. His phone buzzes suddenly. A number he doesn't recognize, he almost ignores it, assuming it's another automated call, but something tells him to answer. "Hello?" he says quietly. "Is this Evan?" A calm voice asks, professional, respectful. "Yes," Evan replies cautiously. "My name is Daniel," the voice continues. "I work for Mrs. Margaret Hale." Evan freezes. The name hits him slowly, unfamiliar but heavy. "She would like to speak with you," Daniel says, "if you're willing." For a moment, Evan thinks this must be a mistake, a prank, or worse, more trouble. His chest tightens. "Why?" he asks carefully. "Because she remembers you," Daniel answers simply. "And because she wants to thank you." The call ends with a location and a time. Evan sits there staring at his phone, his mind racing. Part of him wants to run. Part of him wants to laugh. Another part feels fear creeping in again. People with power don't call people like him without reason. But something in the voice felt different, not threatening, not cold, just honest. That evening, Evan arrives at the quiet office building he was told about. It doesn't scream luxury. No flashy signs. No guards at the door, just calm order. He almost turns around, feeling out of place in his worn clothes. But then the door opens, and Daniel greets him with a nod. No judgment, no arrogance, just respect. Margaret Hale is already inside, seated near a window, standing when Evan enters. She looks older than he remembered, softer somehow. But her presence fills the room. Evan freezes slightly, unsure what to say. But before he can speak, she does. "Thank you," she says gently. Not loudly, not dramatically, just sincerely. Evan blinks, surprised. "I just returned a wallet," he says quietly. Margaret studies him for a moment, then shakes her head slowly. "No," she replies. "You returned something far more important." Her voice tightens slightly. "You returned my faith in people." Evan doesn't know how to respond. Emotions he has been holding back crash into him all at once. Fear, exhaustion, anger, confusion. He looks down, ashamed of how close he feels to breaking. Margaret notices immediately. "I know what they did to you," she continues. "I know about your job, your warning, your eviction notice." Evan's head snaps up, shock clear on his face. "You didn't deserve any of it," she adds firmly. Tears sting Evan's eyes, but he forces them back. Years of being strong alone have taught him not to show weakness. But Margaret leans forward slightly, her voice softer now. "You didn't help me because of who I am," she says. "You helped me because it was right." That sentence breaks him. Evan exhales shakily, his shoulders sag, the weight he has been carrying finally acknowledged. "I was scared," he admits quietly. "I knew I would lose everything." And you still chose kindness, Margaret says. Silence fills the room, heavy but healing. Margaret then says something unexpected. I don't want to give you charity, she says. And I don't want headlines. Evan looks confused. What I want, she continues, is to make things right, quietly, correctly. She slides a folder across the table. Inside are opportunities, not handouts, job placement, housing support, education options, everything structured, dignified. Evan's hands tremble as he flips through the pages. This is not rescue. This is rebuilding. Outside that room, the HOA board sits in silence, waiting, knowing the meeting has already happened without them. Knowing control has slipped through their fingers, they sense it, the way people sense a storm before it arrives. Evan looks up from the folder, eyes full. Why me? He asks. Margaret answers without hesitation. Because the world needs more people like you, she says, and because I refuse to let kindness be punished. As Evan leaves the building later that night, the city feels different, not fixed, not perfect, but lighter. The road ahead is still long, but for the first time in weeks, it exists, and somewhere behind closed HOA doors, the people who thought rules made them untouchable begin to understand something terrifying. Power has noticed, and it is no longer silent. The HOA wakes up that morning pretending nothing is wrong, lawns still trimmed perfectly, fountains still running, rules still posted on every wall, but behind the clean surface something is breaking fast. Emails arrive early, phones ring without pause, and faces that once looked confident now look tired and afraid. Inside the HOA office, the board gathers again, this time without smiles, without jokes. The chairs feel harder, the air heavier. A legal advisor sits quietly at the end of the table, not speaking unless spoken to, because he doesn't need to explain what everyone already knows. Damage control has failed. The first news hits quietly. A local journalist requests comment. Not an interview, just confirmation. Footage has surfaced. Security footage. Clear footage. The board freezes. Someone asks how, another asks who leaked it. But the questions don't matter anymore. Truth has a way of escaping rooms built on silence. And once it does, it cannot be dragged back inside. The headline does not scream. It doesn't need to. It simply states facts. A young cleaner punished for returning a lost wallet. Elderly resident collapses. HOA issues violation instead of thanks. Residents begin reading, and they do not like what they see. In living rooms behind closed curtains, phones glow with anger, messages spread through private HOA groups. Questions start appearing that were never allowed before. Why was he punished? Why didn't anyone help her? What kind of community is this? Guards who once stood tall now avoid eye contact. Supervisors are suddenly unavailable. Rules that were once enforced proudly are now questioned carefully. Fear spreads faster than authority ever did. At the same time, Evan stands in a quiet apartment hallway holding a small set of keys in his palm. They feel unreal, cold metal, solid proof. Not charity, not pity, a fresh start. His new place isn't luxury, but it's clean, safe, and he opens the door slowly, stepping inside like someone afraid the floor might disappear. He sets his bag down and sits on the floor, letting the silence surround him. No eviction notice on the table. No landlord knocking. No panic in his chest, just space to breathe. And without warning, tears come. Not loud, not dramatic, just relief pouring out after weeks of pressure. He presses his hand to his face and whispers a thank you to no one in particular. Back at the HO, the second blow lands harder. A formal notice, AN external audit. Full review. NO timeline, NO exceptions. The legal advisor finally speaks, his voice calm but serious. Cooperate fully, he says, or this becomes much worse. The board knows what that means. Bank accounts flagged, past complaints reopened, old fines questioned. Every decision now under a microscope. The power they once held so easily now feels dangerous in their own hands. Meanwhile, Margaret Hale sits quietly in her office, watching everything unfold without expression. She does not celebrate. She does not smile. This is not revenge. This is correction. She listens as updates come in, residents speaking out, guards reassigned, supervisors placed on leave. The system adjusting under pressure it was never designed to face. She didn't want this public. Her assistant says softly. Margaret nods. I know, she replies. But truth doesn't ask permission. Evan receives a call later that day. Not from lawyers. Not from reporters. From his old contractor, an awkward voice and apology. They want him back. Better pay. Safer assignment. Evan listens quietly, then declines politely, not out of anger, but because his life is moving forward now, and some doors close forever for a reason as the sun sets. A small gathering forms near the HOA gate. Not a protest, not yet, just residents standing together, talking, questioning, sharing stories, things they were never allowed to say before. The gate that once felt untouchable now feels like just metal. Inside the HOA office, resignation letters are drafted quietly. Not announced yet, but coming. Power does not fall loudly here. It leaks away slowly, one decision at a time. Evan walks through his new neighborhood that evening. The city feels different, not kinder, not perfect, but fairer. He knows his story is being talked about somewhere, but he doesn't seek it. He doesn't want fame. He wants peace. Back at the hospital, Margaret Hale stands by the window one last time before discharge. The wallet safely inside her bag, returned to its place, but now it feels lighter, not because of money, but because it led her to something rare. Proof. Proof that kindness still exists. Proof that power still has responsibility. And proof that one quiet act can expose an entire system. As night falls, the HOA lights still glow, but they no longer feel untouchable. Cameras still blink, but now they watch themselves too, and somewhere between exposed truth and restored dignity, the story shifts. This is no longer about a lost wallet. This is about a line that was crossed, and consequences that have only just begun. The HOA courtyard fills slowly that evening, not with celebration, not with anger, but with curiosity. Residents step out of their homes one by one, some confused, some nervous, some quietly angry. Word has spread that the HOA board is calling a public meeting. Something that almost never happens, especially not outside, especially not without rules posted everywhere. Chairs are set in neat rows. A small stage stands near the fountain, the same fountain that once symbolized control and perfection. Now it feels exposed, vulnerable. Cameras from phones replace HOA cameras, recording freely, honestly. Evan stands at the edge of the crowd, not wanting attention. His hands in his pockets, shoulders relaxed but his heart racing. He didn't plan to come, but something pulled him here. Maybe closure, maybe curiosity, maybe the need to see if this place that crushed him could ever speak the truth out loud. The board members arrive together, their posture stiff, confidence gone, faces pale under the lights. They take their seats on the stage. No smiles, no speeches prepared, only discomfort. The HOA manager steps forward, holding a microphone that suddenly feels heavier than authority ever did. She clears her throat. We are here to address a recent incident, she begins, her voice echoing slightly across the courtyard. Residents lean in, phones raised, silence spreads. An incident involving a young worker and one of our residents. Every eye turns instinctively. Evan feels it, the weight of attention pressing gently but firmly on him. He keeps his gaze forward, calm, grounded. He has nothing to hide anymore. The manager continues, words chosen carefully but failing to hide the truth. After an external review, we acknowledge that our actions were inappropriate. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Some residents exchange looks. Others shake their heads. The word inappropriate feels too small for what was done. She swallows and forces herself to go on. The individual involved acted with honesty and kindness. Her voice tightens, and was treated unfairly. That sentence lands hard. For the first time, the HOA admits it. Not behind closed doors. Not in legal language. But publicly. A board member stands next, his hands trembling slightly as he grips the microphone. We issued a violation that should never have existed. He says, eyes down, we caused harm. Silence follows, heavy and uncomfortable. Then whispers, then quiet anger. Someone in the crowd says softly, about time. Another adds louder, you ruined his life. The board members do not respond, because they cannot. Then something unexpected happens. The manager turns slightly, and looks directly at Evan. Her voice drops. No microphone needed now. Evan, she says, saying his name clearly for the first time. We are sorry. Not regret. Not mistakes were made. Sorry. Evan feels his chest tighten. Not with anger, but with release. Weeks of pressure, shame, and silence collapse into one moment. He doesn't smile, he doesn't nod dramatically. He simply breathes, deeply, steadily, letting the apology exist without chasing it. Margaret Hale stands quietly at the back of the crowd, unnoticed by most. No spotlight, no announcement, watching Evan, not the board. Her eyes sharp but calm. She sees what matters. The apology is not for her. It is for him. A resident steps forward and speaks without permission. What about the guards? She asks loudly. What about the rules that let this happen? Applause follows, not loud, but strong. The board looks shaken again. The manager responds carefully. Changes are already underway. She says, leadership restructuring, new oversight, and revised conduct policies. The words sound official, but this time they are backed by fear, by exposure, by consequences. Evan turns to leave quietly, not wanting to be part of the noise, but a young mother stops him gently. Thank you, she says, eyes soft, for doing the right thing. Another resident nods in agreement, then another. Gratitude spreads quietly, organically. Evan feels something unfamiliar, respect without fear. As the crowd disperses, the HOA courtyard no longer feels cold. It feels human, imperfect, but alive. The board members step down from the stage one by one, smaller now, their power reduced to responsibility. Margaret approaches Evan calmly. No crowd, no attention. You handled that with dignity? She says softly. Evan shrugs slightly. I didn't want trouble, he replies. She smiles gently. That's why this matters. They stand for a moment, watching people talk freely, something that once felt impossible here. Evan looks around and realizes something important. This place no longer owns him. His story does not belong to them anymore. That night, Evan walks home slowly, not because he is tired, but because he wants to feel the moment fully. The city lights feel warmer, the air lighter, his phone buzzes with messages, offers, interviews, opportunities, but he ignores them for now. Tonight is not about the future. It's about closure. Back in the HOA office, resignation letters are finally signed. Keys placed quietly on desks. Authority handed over, not with dignity, but with necessity. Power that once punished kindness now learns what accountability feels like. As Evan reaches his door, he pauses, looks up at the sky, and exhales. Not a sigh of relief, but of understanding. Kindness didn't make him weak. It revealed strength in places power never looked. And somewhere deep inside the HOA, behind rewritten rules and silent cameras, one lesson remains burned into the walls. You can control people with fear, but the moment truth speaks out loud, that control is over. Morning arrives softly, not with urgency, not with fear, but with calm. Evan wakes up in his small apartment as sunlight slips through the window, touching the bare walls gently. For the first time in a long while, he does not reach for his phone in panic. There are no eviction notices waiting, no warnings, no messages telling him he doesn't belong, just silence and space to breathe. He sits up slowly and listens to the city waking up, cars passing, distant voices, life continuing, and for the first time he feels part of it instead of pushed to the side. He stands by the window and looks outside, thinking about how close he came to losing everything, and how one simple choice changed the direction of his life. Evan's days begin to take shape again, not overnight, not magically, but steadily. He starts a new job where his work is respected, not watched with suspicion. His supervisor knows his name, asks how he's doing, trusts him. That alone feels strange at first. Evan works hard, not to prove anything, but because dignity has returned to his life, and he refuses to waste it. Meanwhile, inside the HOA, things are no longer the same. New notices replace old ones, the language changes, fewer threats, more explanations. Cameras remain but no longer feel like weapons. Residents begin greeting one another. Small things that once felt impossible now happen naturally. Kindness slowly returns to a place that once punished it. Margaret Hale watches from a distance, always quietly. She does not step into the spotlight. She does not give interviews. She simply ensures promises are kept, audits completed, leadership replaced, systems corrected. For her, this is not victory, it is responsibility. She understands something most people with power forget. Real justice does not need applause. One afternoon, Evan receives a simple envelope. No logo, no lawyer language. Inside is a handwritten note, the writing shaky but warm. Thank you for reminding me who I used to be. I hope you never forget who you are. Evan smiles softly, folds the note carefully, and places it in his wallet, the same place where bills and IDs now sit beside meaning. Weeks pass, and Evan finds himself walking near the old HOA gates again. Not to work, not to clean, just passing through the area. The gate is still tall, still polished, but it no longer feels untouchable. He pauses for a moment, remembering the night everything began, the flashing cameras, the panic, the choice. He realizes something important. The gate didn't change him, his choice did. A child rides a bike nearby, laughing freely. A guard nods politely at a resident. No harsh voices, no raised hands. Evan continues walking, not looking back. Some places are meant to be left behind. That evening, Evan sits alone at home, cooking a simple meal. He eats slowly, appreciating the quiet, the safety, the sense of control over his own life. He thinks about how easy it would have been to walk away that night, to choose survival over kindness. He understands now that survival without humanity is just another kind of loss. Across the city, Margaret Hale closes her office door and turns off the lights. Her work done. For now, she picks up her bag, checks her wallet once more, not out of fear, but habit, and smiles faintly, knowing that sometimes the smallest losses reveal the greatest truths. The story spreads quietly, not as a headline, but as a reminder. People talk about it in pieces: a cleaner, a wallet, an old woman, an HOA that learned the hard way. But the real lesson isn't spoken aloud. It's felt. Kindness is not weakness. It is a test. And those who fail it expose themselves. Evan stands by his window one last time before bed. The city lights glowing below. He doesn't feel powerful, rich, or important. He feels something better, whole. And somewhere between cold rules and quiet courage, a community learned that when one person chooses to do the right thing, even when it costs everything, the world around them has no choice but to change. Life does not change loudly after everything settles. It changes quietly, slowly, in ways that only those who suffered notice first. Evan feels this the most. Days pass where nothing dramatic happens, no calls from lawyers, no meetings, no confrontations, just normal mornings and long evenings. And yet every small moment feels different now, lighter, safer, real. Evan walks to work one morning and realizes something strange. He is no longer rushing, no longer scanning faces for danger, no longer expecting someone to stop him and say he doesn't belong. The fear that once lived in his chest like a permanent guest has begun to leave. Not completely, scars do not vanish that easily, but it loosens its grip. At work, he helps a new coworker explain a task patiently. Not because he has to, but because he remembers what it feels like to be unseen. His supervisor notices, nods quietly. Respect does not always come with words. Sometimes it comes with trust. Evan feels it and holds onto it carefully. Across town, inside the HOA community, the changes continue in ways no one announces. Fines are reviewed, warnings are questioned, residents begin speaking to one another without fear of being reported. A man helps his neighbor carry groceries without looking over his shoulder. A teenager plays music softly without panic. Small freedoms return one by one. Healing is slow, but it is happening. Some board members disappear from sight completely, their names slowly forgotten. Others stay and learn, humbled, quieter, forced to face what their rules once did to real people. The HOA still exists, but it no longer feels like a wall. It feels like a place learning how not to hurt. Margaret Hale keeps her distance, but she watches, always aware, always present without being seen. She does not need thanks. She does not want recognition. She has seen enough power used wrongly in her life to know that the real victory is restraint. Sometimes doing the right thing means stepping back and letting others grow. One afternoon, Evan receives an unexpected message. Not from work, not from Margaret, but from a resident he barely remembers. A woman who lived near the gate that night. She writes simply, "I saw what they did to you. I'm sorry we stayed quiet." Evan reads it twice. Then once more, something tight inside his chest finally releases. Sometimes apologies come late, but they still matter. That evening, Evan visits a small park near his apartment, sits on a bench, watching children run and laugh, parents talk, dogs pull on leashes, life in motion. He thinks about the night he found the wallet, how close he was to walking away, how different everything would be if he had. He understands now that courage is not loud or fearless. It is choosing to act even when fear promises consequences. He closes his eyes briefly and breathes in the evening air. Gratitude mixed with sadness, strength mixed with memory. The past does not disappear, but it no longer controls him. Elsewhere, the story continues spreading quietly, not as gossip, but as example. People share it when they talk about rules, about fairness, about what kind of neighbors they want to be. Some say the HOA changed because of audits and lawyers. Others say it changed because one person refused to look away. Both are true, but only one touches the heart. Margaret sits alone one night, looking through old photos again. The same ones that were almost lost. She realizes something important. The wallet did not just return her memories. It returned her purpose. A reminder that wealth without conscience is empty. She smiles softly, closes the wallet, and places it beside her bed, safe. Evan returns home that night and places his keys on the table, a simple action, but one that still feels meaningful. Keys mean ownership, safety, choice. He cooks dinner, eats slowly, and for the first time in a long while, thinks about the future without fear shaping every thought. Before bed, he checks his phone and sees a message from a number he does not recognize. It reads, "Because of you, I helped someone today." No name, no explanation, just that. Evan smiles, not wide, not dramatic, just real. As the lights go out across the city, the echoes of one act of kindness continue moving outward, unseen, unmeasured, changing lives in ways no camera could ever capture. The storm has passed, but its message remains. Kindness does not end when the danger is over. At IT begins there, and the strength it builds does not fade. At IT stays. Time moves forward quietly, not announcing victories, not celebrating justice, just carrying lessons into ordinary days. Evan's life continues in a way that feels simple but strong. Mornings begin with purpose. Nights end without fear. The chaos that once ruled his thoughts has faded into memory, still present, but no longer in control. Evan never becomes famous. No interviews, no headlines, no applause, and that is exactly how he wants it. He works hard, saves slowly, builds carefully, every step grounded in humility. People at work trust him. Neighbors greet him by name. Respect follows him without effort. Not because of what he survived, but because of how he treats others. Kindness has become his quiet language. One evening, Evan walks past a small convenience store and notices an old man struggling to carry groceries. People pass by without stopping, busy with their own lives. Evan pauses. The moment feels familiar, almost too familiar. He hesitates only a second before stepping forward, lifting the bags gently, offering help without asking questions. The old man smiles in surprise, says thank you, and Evan nods, walking away without waiting for more. He does not know who the man is, and he does not need to. That night, Evan sits alone in his apartment, holding the same wallet he carries every day. Inside it is the handwritten note Margaret once gave him. Folded neatly, the paper worn now, but the words still clear. He reads it slowly, not because he needs reassurance, but because it reminds him who he chose to be when it mattered most. Across the city, the HOA stands quieter now. Rules still exist, but they no longer crush people beneath them. Residents talk openly, children play freely, guards enforce safety instead of fear. It is not perfect, but it is human. The board that once punished kindness has been replaced by accountability, and the walls that once felt cold now hold echoes of change. Margaret Hale watches the transformation from a distance, her role finished, her influence withdrawn deliberately. She understands something deeply now. Power should never linger where it has already corrected. She attends no meetings, gives no speeches. She simply lives with the peace of knowing she used her position the right way when it mattered. One afternoon, she visits a small park, sits on a bench, and watches people pass. A young man helps a child up after a fall. A woman shares water with a stranger. Small acts repeating quietly. Margaret smiles, knowing the world does not change through grand gestures alone. It changes through moments like these, repeated endlessly. Evan receives a letter weeks later, not from lawyers, not from the HOA, but from a local school. They invite him to speak, not about drama, not about the incident, but about honesty, about choices, about doing the right thing when no one is watching. Evan hesitates, unsure if he belongs there. But then he remembers how one moment shaped everything and he accepts. Standing in front of students, Evan speaks simply, no big words, no speeches, just truth. I didn't know what would happen, he tells them. I was scared, but I knew what was right. The room stays silent, not bored, not distracted, but listening, because honesty always commands attention as Evan leaves the school. He feels something settle inside him. Not pride, not victory, but purpose. His story is no longer about loss or punishment. It is about choice, and that choice continues to live beyond him. That night, Evan walks home under the city lights. The same streets that once felt hostile now feel open. He looks up at the sky and exhales slowly, thinking about how close he came to choosing fear, and how grateful he is that he didn't. Somewhere nearby, a security camera blinks quietly, still recording, still watching, but this time it captures something different. Not fear, not control, but a man walking forward, unafraid, unchanged. The truth is simple. Kindness did not make Evan rich. It did not make him powerful. It made him free. And long after rules are rewritten, boards are replaced, and power fades into history, that freedom remains, living on in every quiet choice made by those who watched and learned. Because the strongest legacy is not money. It is character. And the world will always remember those who chose it, even when no one was watching.